Do you believe in Jesus Christ as your personal Lord and Savior? Good. This is what the man shouted at me as I made my way to the hotel. This was years ago. I was attending a conference in Washington, D.C., hosted by a Catholic group. And I was really looking forward to hearing several talks by some very prominent Catholic speakers about faith. But before I got into the hotel, I was confronted by a group of believers from a local evangelical church who had become convinced that it was their job to save all of us Catholics from our false religion. And they were right there in front of the hotel. Some of them were holding up signs that they had created. One sign said, "The Pope is the Antichrist." Another said, "Jesus hates the rosary." I didn't know that. And that's when the man yelled at me, "Do you believe in Jesus Christ as your personal Lord and Savior?" Frankly, I have not had enough caffeine that day to deal with him. And so I just thought, I'm just going to keep walking. Just keep walking. But he didn't want me to keep walking. And so he asked me another question. Do you believe in the book of Genesis or in evolution? I quietly said, I believe that they both contain the truth. That was not the answer he wanted. So he continued, do you believe in hell? And I said, with some conviction, yes. And I think that someone like you will be in charge of torturing me there. I did not win the Catholic Attitude Award that day. But later on, I started to wonder, what motivates people to undertake actions like that? What motivates people to protest other Christians, to accost them on the sidewalk with a checklist of questions? And since I can't read another person's heart, I just wanted to think that through. And I think that, well, maybe the problem is this, that for many people, and not just those folks I met in DC, for many people, faith is defined as a long list of statements that we must believe in. And so when people ask, do you have faith? What they're asking is, do you believe the right things? And if we say yes to that long list of questions, then according to them, we have the right faith. But if not, we are going to hell. Now, to be fair and balanced, let's just admit right up front, it's not just evangelicals who have that notion of faith. We Catholics, we have been around a long time, and we have perfected this over the years. Think how many of us of a certain generation were taught the faith through a catechism, right? And what's the catechism? It's a book-length list of questions and answers. We memorize them, and we say yes to them, and supposedly we now have the faith. And so in the past, what we Catholics would do to our Protestant neighbors is we would ask them questions such as, do you believe that the Pope is infallible? Or do you believe that in the Eucharist, the real presence of Christ can be found? And if they didn't believe, if they gave us the wrong answer, then we concluded that they were going to hell to pray the rosary there. See, the problem is when we define faith that way, what we are doing is to reduce the faith to a list of facts that we say we believe in. And in that sense, faith becomes primarily an intellectual exercise. It reduces faith to a set of answers. It leaves very little room for questions. And so this can turn people into a kind of people that judge others, who shout at people on the sidewalk. In today's gospel, the disciple says to Jesus in the very first line, increase our faith. Increase our faith. Now, if faith is a list of beliefs, then it sounds like the disciples are asking Jesus to give them a longer list of things to believe in. Increase our faith means give us more to memorize, less room for questions. But notice how Jesus responds. Jesus says that more is not necessarily better. He says, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you could say to this tree, go jump in the lake, and it would. The disciples were thinking that faith is something that you can quantify or measure or memorize. So if a little faith is good, more must be better, right? But Jesus says that faith is not about quantity. It is not about measuring. It is not about memorizing. Faith is not defined by amount. My dear friends, every one of us has to answer at least two questions at some point in our lives. The first, what do I trust? The second, what's going to give meaning to my life? More specifically, whom do I trust? Who will give my life meaning? According to Jesus in today's gospel, we begin to find the right answer. We begin to experience truth, even if we have just a tiny piece of us inside of us that's deep down in us that says, I am going to trust the mystery that I can't quite see clearly. I'm going to find meaning in the God that Jesus has made known to me. Even if I have a lot of questions, even if I'm unsure about so many things, even if I find myself struggling with doubt and uncertainty. Faith, the size of a mustard seed, turns us towards the God that we can trust and the God who is happy to give us meaning. Think about how many people around us who are disappointed and who are unhappy because they have put their trust in the wrong things and in the wrong people. Think of how many people around us who have spent a greater part of their life seeking fulfillment and meaning in all the wrong places because they have trusted lies, lies that told them that happiness may be found in money, may be found in power, may be found in distractions, excitement, consumption, unfaithfulness, ambition, greed. People around us have trusted that the stuff of earth can satisfy our deepest longings, and we know that is not true. Jesus says that faith, even the smallest amount of faith, opens the door to God, who gently and persistently draws us out of ourselves towards a truth that is beyond articulation, towards a trust that we are participating in something bigger than ourselves. Faith is not about quantity. The smallest, tiniest amount of faith can lead us to do great things and be great people. Did you notice that Jesus immediately switches the discussion from the measurement of faith to the meaning of service? It's like Jesus is saying that a person who has even a tiny bit of faith can find meaning in their lives because that tiny amount of faith can lead them to faith-filled service. In the mind of Jesus, faith begins to blossom precisely when we get our attention off of ourselves. Meaning and fulfillment happens when we stop gazing at our own belly buttons and start attending to the needs of others. When we can discover joy, the joy that comes when we give rather than receive. Every one of us trusts something. Every one of us seeks meaning somewhere. Every one of us has a small seed of faith. The question is, are we putting it in the right place? If we put our seed of faith in the wrong people and in the wrong things, nothing beautiful happens. But if we put our seed of faith in the right place, if we put our faith in Jesus, be prepared for a real surprise.